shoot on us. Generation. I wasn't born to just eat, sleep, and stay at home. I want to go to school.
هستیم ما بشر هستیم انسان هستیم چرا ما مکتب نریم قلبم خون گریه میکنه تو چی وقت او سال 3 سال است ما درش کندید میکنیم 186 روز بود ما مکتب نرفتیم چرا
मेरा नाम फरीदा खैरख्वाह है और मेरी बेटी का नाम हदिया खैरख्वाह और वो अफ़गानी स्कूल जो यहाँ पे है अलामा सैयद जमालुद्दीन अफ़गान हाई स्कूल उसी स्कूल में पढ़ती है मतलब वहाँ स्टूडेंट है और वो 5th क्लास में है। अपनी सेफ्टी के लिए अपने बच्चों की खातिर हमने अपनी देश छोड़कर यहाँ आए हैं ताकि तालिबान का मतलब है वो लेडीज़ के ऊपर बहुत जुल्म करते हैं उसको पढ़ाई की इजाज़त नहीं देते हैं काम की इजाज़त नहीं देते हैं मतलब सब कुछ लेडीज़ के लिए बंद है। मेरे एक ही बेटी है और मैं हदिया के लिए बहुत कुछ मतलब उसकी फ्यूचर के लिए चाहती हूँ जैसे कि इसकी पढ़ाई फिनिश हो जाए ख़त्म हो जाए और इसकी कोई हाई पोजीशन हो।
मेरे नाम हदिया खैरख्वाह है मुझे पढ़ाई करनी है और बिजनेस वूमन बनना है। My name is Kainat, my last name is Umari. I'm in 11th class in Jam-aluddin Afghan High School.
My name is Humaira Nadri and I am 18 years old and I'm studying in the Jam-aluddin Afghan School and I'm in 12th grade.
Of course, everyone has a dream and goal to achieve. Even I have.
We just got informed that an Afghan school is in India and it is coming in Bugal.
My dream is to become a doctor or a lawyer.
I want to make like new stuff, like the world is changing day by day and I want to make like a change in this world.
Studying and education is the basic right of life that you have to. By studying, you can grow more. You can get educated. You can study more to have more information about the environment, society, country, people, and everything.
We come to school, we see different ideas, different people with different aspirations, and that is what drives us to our own dreams.
So only by studying, we can improve in our life. We can achieve what we want to have in our life. their rights is being taken by others. They don't have right to go to school, they don't have right to go to university.
Education is very important for every human being in this world, but as you can see that situation in Afghanistan, like today, half of the girls, they cannot go to school. Maybe they have been dreaming, they have been really planning for their future to make some changes for them, for the people, for the country, but since it came, that's not, they're not able to do it anymore.
It is very tough to not study, to not go to school, to not go to university. Everyone should have this right.
As an Afghan girl that we study in India, we're really fortunate, and we're really grateful that after all those girls in Afghanistan, we have the opportunity to study in this country.
This school was directly funded by our Ministry of Education in Kabul. When the Republic was collapsed, there was no funding to any school, not to this particular school or any other school outside Afghanistan's border. As a matter of moral principle, we never approached Taliban for funding. We kept the school up and running with whatever available resources that we had at the mission and whatever financial contribution and sacrifices the teachers and the parents could make.
Taliban came and everything happened so fast, and they were like, we're closing the school, every students we were like panicking, like what's happening? We were like so hopeless. It was our last year, it was just 1 year we could go to the other steps of our life, but they said no, the school will be closed and it's all ended. It like the world came black on us, like why?
After several months, we reached a stage where we required external help. We then made an outreach to the Indian government, and luckily, unfortunately, our request was taken into consideration. Over the past 1 year, we have been consistently supported by the Indian government. Our request is to have that funding continued in the future.
A few days ago, we heard that it will not be closed, it will stay like this. It was the happiest news we heard in this year.
Well, so that's the documentary. You can catch it on the OTT platform News 9 Plus. It's available on the Google App Store and the Apple App Store as well. And if that documentary possibly did not move you, I don't know what will. I mean, in a country where 3 million girls are denied the opportunity to continue with their education, we're trying to bring you the plight of a school that is facing imminent closure. This school, Syed Jam-aluddin Afghan High School, it's at risk, and the future of nearly hundreds of students. Let's forget about the staff at this point in time, 300 odd students, it hangs in the balance. Joining us in the studio is, who better to talk about this than you, Aditya? Aditya Rajkol, Strategic Affairs Executive Editor. Aditya, girl education and Taliban, it's no news that these two terminologies don't go hand in hand necessarily. But 2023, given what has happened recently with the Taliban takeover and how the Taliban has postured itself vis-a-vis, women empowerment also. They call it empowerment. God knows what's happening on the ground. Why do you think this time and moment in history, it's important to address the situation, address a concern like this? Taliban closing schools, girls' education, those voices, those cries. A girl called Hadia in the documentary says that she wants to grow up to be a businesswoman. Several others say they want to be lawyers and doctors. And, you're really moved. It really pinches you at the right place in your heart that, these are girls. There is, piousness, there's purity, there is, organic ambitions that are suddenly curtailed, stomped on. There is no other way to look at it. What moved you to make this story? Why do you think it's important that you put this out in front of the world?
Well, Kabir, the situation in Afghanistan is known to all. It's an open secret, even though many reports are not coming in as to what exactly is happening with girls, with women, with their rights. It clearly is a question of fundamental rights. And when first, a couple of months ago, my colleague Lakshana and I came to know about these details, about Syed Jam-aluddin School in Bogle of Delhi, we were really moved. And we knew at that stage that we had to narrate this story, no matter what happens. And this is not a story of only 300 girls and students in Delhi, 300 Afghan girls and students. This is a story of 3 million Afghan girls whose fate and career hangs in a balance in Afghanistan. So there are two stories that are actually running parallelly when we actually tell the story of Talibanned. It is the story of the common Afghan girl who, after the Taliban takeover, have no fundamental rights. They have no right to education, either in schools or in university. Only perhaps until class 6th can they study. After that, they cannot. No Afghan girl, be it young or elderly or middle-aged, can move out alone in Afghanistan unless she has a male companion with her, either in the car or on the streets. What can be worse? Afghanistan was changing. There was democracy being restored until a few years ago. There was unparalleled education that was being given to them. Several Afghan girls and women, graduated to top universities in US, in the West. Many of them came to India as well. Some of them are today top anchors of global news channels. They are in IT companies. They are doing a lot about human rights, about education itself. So we knew that Taliban is not going to move away, and the brutality only continues. So here was a little story, a little chance for us to do our bit as documentary filmmakers, as journalists, to narrate this story, because we only had the power of the pen or the power of the camera or our voice to dissent and to actually let the people know what the reality is. In this particular case, this was a school in the Bogle area of Delhi, Syed Jam-aluddin School, which was being run for years. It is the oldest school here of the Afghan refugees, and there are hundreds and thousands of Afghan students who have studied from there and made it big. And suddenly, after the Taliban takeover, they refused to fund it, and the Afghan embassy in New Delhi was also incompetent to fund it anymore. But then came a glimmer of hope where the Indian government said that temporarily they can fund it so that at least the students who are studying there currently, their career is not jeopardized.
So temporarily the Indian government is funding the Syed Jam-aluddin School. Can you elaborate on the challenges and the consequences if this school, shuts down imminently?
Well, there are challenges are immense. There are close to 300 students who are studying there, both girls as well as young boys. Their career would be at stake because they also come from families who do not have much money. They come from poor background. That's why they fled Afghanistan. They wanted prosperity. They wanted better future, employment, and career opportunities. And that's why they came to India. They saw a glimmer of hope in India, a rising sun in India, and that's why they left their home and hearth and their homeland and chose India. So if the school shuts down these 300 students, what about their education? Where will they go? They cannot afford private education. They cannot go to government school because of technical reasons. So the question really is that this is their last hope. Indian government has certainly stepped in, as has Indian government in Afghanistan as well. A lot of aid is being sent, even though Afghanistan currently is under Taliban takeover. Indian government has sent in a lot of ration, a lot of humanitarian aid to Afghanistan as well. And as of now, the Indian government is supporting this Afghan school. But till when? The question is that their future still hangs in a balance. What about the future Afghan kids who will be here in India, here in New Delhi? Because this is not only the Afghan school in Delhi, this is the only Afghan refugee school in India. And there are hundreds and perhaps a few thousand Afghan who stay here. And for them, this is their last hope. And originally I had thought of the title of this film as The Last Lesson. And perhaps these kids, these students are waiting for their last lesson, perhaps any day.
Certainly. I mean, I remember the last lesson, there was a chapter back in school as well when the Germans were trying to take over the French territory, and this French boy goes to his school only to realize that it was going to be his last French lesson ever. And those feelings of exodus, those feelings of leaving, those feelings of uprootment, they really linger on, leave a bad taste in your mouth. You can't really uproot yourself, and I mean, something that you call home, you've come away from all of that. And you rightly pointed out, it seems like it is the last lesson, the last hope here in Delhi, Bogal, a small area, and you've got this Jam-aluddin school, the only Afghan school in all of India. But at the same time, it's disheartening to see 3 million girl children that are being denied their right to education. You can study till 6th grade, but not after that. So there is, it's like, you're letting the shark taste blood, and then you're suddenly, asking the shark to go cold turkey on it. Why do you think the Taliban is so staunchly opposing, women education?
Firstly, they want to apply the Sharia law completely. They do not believe in, women rights. They see women, behind closed doors as best. And that's what happened in the earlier regime of Taliban as well. In this particular case, for the 300 students and their families, it's doubly a tragedy because one, as you rightly pointed out, Kabir, they've lost their home, perhaps forever. They've lost their homeland. They cannot return to their motherland. But this was a place where every day these students used to come, not just have fun, but one important thing is that this was a school where Pashto and Dari, the original languages of Afghanistan, were also being restored. They were being taught to these kids. They were coming to know what their culture actually is. They were keeping that culture alive. And so it's a double tragedy for them that one, they cannot return to their motherland. They are in forever exile in a street nameless. And now they again do not know whether their education will last and till how much time will it last. And secondly, your question about the 3 million girls in Afghanistan. One important thing that they are doing now, at least not most of them, but many, is that they're turning to online education. And thank God that we have online medium of education and still internet running there. I don't know when Taliban will curb that and have their draconian measures in place to stop that as well. But currently there are many girls who are returning to online education and relying on it completely. I don't know how much successful that would be, but that is certainly a huge hope for many of these girls who are now relegated, isolated, and cannot leave their homes completely.
The semantics of education, Aditya, must also change back in Afghanistan, right? I mean, the quintessential student in a primary school here in India is going to be learning about the sciences, but you pointed out it is tumultuous times, it's a tenuous situation in Afghanistan. I'm sure the teachers are also focusing on the fact that you help the girl student become more aware of what's happening around them. It's not necessarily about the Om resistance or what's happening in physics and chemistry, but rather about, broadening their horizon of thinking and, faculties and stuff like that. So the semantics of education, be it online or offline, has also somewhere changed in Afghanistan, hasn't it?
It has changed drastically. As I said, until the Taliban took over in Kabul, there was an unparalleled change. There was a paradigm shift. Afghan girls were getting almost equal rights as men, no matter what their background, ethnicity, be it Hazras or anybody else. They were getting equal opportunities in American university, in Kabul University, in other schools, international agencies as well. But everything changed when the Taliban took over. And that's perhaps the reason now that the UNESCO, while celebrating the International Education Day this year, actually dedicated the International Education Day to the Afghan girls and women for their resilience, for their courage, for their commitment to education. You see street fights happening where Afghan women, knowing what the future can be, knowing the brutality of the Taliban, continuously protesting for their rights, for education, for career, for their professional independence. But still, many of them have been arrested.
Heroic stories. I mean, you've got activists who are right now in exile but are still, professing and, raising their voice for girls' education. I mean, it's quite heartwarming to see all of this still happening.
Absolutely. It's heartwarming, and it's also unimaginable to an extent where in the world of 2023, you cannot imagine that Afghanistan has now returned to Taliban. Taliban has territorial independence and sovereignty over the entire Afghan land, and they hold the key to the future of these Afghan women and ladies and girls. And it's absolute resilience, absolute courage, where we see that the Afghan girls are denying and rejecting the Taliban on the streets, not on internet, not on some book or some only from outside Afghanistan, but inside Afghanistan on the streets. On the other hand are Afghan Taliban holding guns and Glock. On the other side are Afghan women holding placards and pen, saying that we will resist, we will continue to fight, and the fight certainly isn't over.
And just from that, imagery, that pictorial description that you try to create for all the viewers, the documentary begins with a comparison. It begins with the, birds chirping. It begins with, a melodious tune where, you've got a serene class and students are, flocking in. Suddenly it changes into, explosion sounds and gunfire sounds. So you've had these explosive sounds replace your everyday classroom aura and sounds. But at the same time, there's this placard that the woman is holding. It says, "Why is the world watching us cruelly?" What do you think the world can now do more? I mean, this is not just an Afghan problem. This is a 3 million Afghan girls, but 130 million odd girls globally whose education is affected. But coming back just to the problem that Afghanistan is facing, what more can the world do? I mean, I understand the pleas, the voices of people on ground who are holding that placard saying, "Why is the world watching us cruelly? Why aren't you interfering?" How can the world interfere more? What can the globe do more?
First and foremost, we need to ask questions, not just to the Taliban, but to the Americans. What was the American policy in Afghanistan all these years? Why did they abandon Afghans at the mercy of the cruel, brutal Taliban?
There is more for them to atone here.
Absolutely. I mean, it is not just an embarrassment for Joe Biden and US. It is a criminal silence that has been there by the United States. You see those visuals of the American Air Force flight actually going and the Afghans actually
on top of
jumping
those
on
wings.
it.
Yeah.
And then when it took off, 2 Afghans actually falling down to their death. Those are the most gory visuals of this century, I would say. And this will haunt Americans for a very, very long time, even more than what happened in Vietnam. So the question needs to be asked to the USA, what is their plan? Why did they blindly abide by what the Taliban and the Pakistanis and the Pakistan ISI said? Because they have been betrayed. Americans have been betrayed. They blindly fell to the game of the Taliban and Pakistanis. First is this. Second, globally we need to have empathy. Instead of empowering the Taliban, we need to empower Afghan women and children. We need to put conditions to the Taliban that you will receive humanitarian aid only if you support and help the Afghan women grow equally as Afghan men and boys. There needs to be equality, there needs to be full education, professional capabilities, and whenever anybody wants to leave Afghanistan, they need to be given free access. Until these conditions are met, the global community, the international forums, the UN, the European Union or any other forum needs to put these conditions heavily on Afghanistan, and of course those who are helping Afghanistan and Taliban in these brutalities and crimes. So when we made this story, our only focus was that this story should reach masses, so that there is some empathy, so that there is some generation of empathy for these people whose careers, whose life is completely at stake. And I hope that this Talibanned, the ban does not continue for years to now. If it continues for years together, certainly there's a bleak future for these 3 million Afghan girls.
Well, certainly. I mean, I implore the audience that are watching the show right now to, share this documentary as much as possible, because it's important that this message goes across to each and every one. Like Aditya mentioned, global empathy is something that we are lacking. Coming back to what India has done, India's significance in Afghanistan, and not just in Afghanistan, the Sayyid Jam-aluddin school back here in Delhi as well. You were talking about how the center has stepped in, the Indian government is temporarily going to fund this particular school. What more can the Indian government do? Shouldn't we be expecting the Indian government to fund the school permanently now? I mean, that's going to be one of those arguments that are going to be put out in the public opinion.
Well, India has done more than it can in the region, and the Taliban is also looking towards India for more help, more aid instead of Pakistan or any other country. India has sent down a lot of humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. India has yet again opened its embassy, even though it has not given a diplomatic credit or credibility to the Taliban. Taliban has not been allowed to open its embassy in New Delhi, but Indian embassy is functional there. There are some diplomats as well as security team that is monitoring the situation very closely, sitting in Kabul. And as I said, a lot of humanitarian aid is continuously going in to Afghanistan. At the same time, India has decided to, as of now, at least for a year or so, to fund this particular school, Sayyid Jam-aluddin school in Bogle of Delhi. India has not rejected.
I mean, how could you not, Aditya? I mean, take a look at those smiles, those little children. It's quite appalling. How can you let this school shut down? I'm guessing everybody who gets to know about this story is going to pitch in with their little bit, because the smiles of these students, the youngsters, the young little kids, and the cultural aspect that you spoke about, I mean, it really moved me for sure.
Absolutely. So I think India believes in Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. India has proven that during the COVID-19 pandemic, helping out the global community with vaccine. India has led several such global initiatives, and I think in this also India will take a very empathetic call. As of now, it's a temporary funding, but I hope it will be a more permanent structure that will come in. Perhaps the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Home Affairs and the Ministry of External Affairs together take a call on it on humanitarian grounds. It is absolutely necessary because India believes in education. India has been giving that education to the global community. So I think that's the least that we can do, and perhaps the government of India will take a call on it. But this is also a larger issue. It's not, as I said, only about these 300 kids, because these 300 kids could be funded. What about those 3 million girls who are chained, abandoned, isolated, and do not have a way out from that prison?
Being shot at for studying inside schools. I mean, those are some of the concerns in those voice messages that you've inculcated in the documentary. Again, asking everybody to go check it out. How girls, they're crying. There are voice notes where girls are saying that he's shooting at us. हम पे गोली चलाई जा रही है क्योंकि हम स्कूल आए हैं. This, by the end of it, don't you think it's going to become a human resource problem for Afghanistan itself? I mean, today, our youngsters, our students are tomorrow's scientists, tomorrow's educationists, tomorrow's academicians, tomorrow's politicians, you name it. They're the ones who are going to take the country forward. Don't you think curbing down on these women in Afghanistan, and the documentary begins with this, girl's appeal. And there is so much logic behind this girl's appeal and anger, yet she manages to sort of like placate her anger with logic and says, how do you expect my country to go forward if I can't read, if I can't study, if I'm being chained to draconian, ideologies? How will the country move forward? Don't you think this is going to, this is like shooting yourself in the foot for Afghanistan?
Absolutely. Kabir, you and I and the Afghan kids and students can understand and relate with it. But can the Taliban? The Taliban has a very myopic vision. The Taliban only think about their own vested interests. They do not care about the Afghan women education or girls. As of now, the latest statement that came a month ago from the Taliban said that we are not going to restore any kind of girl education either in universities or colleges. So it's been close to 2 years now that there is completely shut down and ban on the education of women. So this is a humanitarian crisis that the Taliban certainly cannot understand. This is going to further weaken the Afghan society, the Afghan government, and whatever Islamic Emirate that the Taliban is running in Afghanistan. So clearly our endeavor here was a plea, an awareness campaign, a story that needs to reach not just the Taliban but the global audience, and pressure needs to be mounted so that education can be restored, because this is a fundamental right globally that certainly cannot be denied.
Absolutely. And it's not just, like you mentioned, it's not just about the 300 girls at the Jam-aluddin school. It's not about the 3 million girl students in Afghanistan. It's about all the students, not just girl students. It's about all the students, that some sort of educational parity, and we need to constantly bridge that gap. And it's stories like these, the Talibanned, fight for education and the survival of education in Afghanistan, particularly for girl students, is something that we constantly need to talk about. Aditya, many thanks for joining with us and helping us out with these insightful inputs. What a great documentary. Again, congratulating you on that. And again, urging all the viewers to check out the documentary. It's on the News 9 Plus application. It's the world's first news OTT, available on Google and Apple App Store. And not just this story, other cutting-edge documentaries with incisive analysis. That is something that we here at News 9 can definitely promise you. Many thanks, Aditya. That's all the time we have for you in this edition. Keep talking about this, because it's important that we keep bringing up these global issues as well. Leaving you with a snippet of this documentary. Thanks for watching.
Can you imagine it? How a country can develop without education? If I don't get education, if any girl in Afghanistan don't get education, so how our next generation would be well-mannered?
It's very tough to not study, to not go to school, to not go to university.
They shoot on us.
Generation. I wasn't born to just eat, sleep, and stay at home. I want to go to school.
ما بشر هستیم، انسان هستیم، چرا ما مکتب نریم؟ قلب خون گریه میکنه. تو چی وقت؟ او سال 3 سال است ما درش خندیدیم میکنیم. 186 روز ما مکتب نرفتیم. چرا؟
मेरा नाम फरीदा खैरख्वाह है और मेरे बेटी का नाम हदिया खैरख्वाह और वो अफ़गानी स्कूल जो यहाँ पे है अलामा सैयद जमालुद्दीन अफ़गान हाई स्कूल उसी स्कूल में पढ़ती है, मतलब वहाँ स्टूडेंट है और वो 5th क्लास में है। अपनी सेफ्टी के लिए अपने बच्चों की खातिर हमने अपनी देश छोड़कर यहाँ आई है ताकि तालिबान का मतलब है वो लेडीज़ के ऊपर बहुत जुल्म करते हैं, उसको पढ़ाई की इजाज़त नहीं देते हैं, काम की इजाज़त नहीं देते हैं, मतलब सब कुछ लेडीज़ के लिए बंद है। मेरे एक ही बेटी है और मैं हादिया के लिए बहुत कुछ मतलब उसकी फ्यूचर के लिए चाहती हूँ, जैसे कि इसकी पढ़ाई फिनिश हो जाए, ख़त्म हो जाए और इसकी कोई हाई पोजीशन हो।
मेरे नाम हादिया खैरख्वाह है, मुझे पढ़ाई करनी है और बिजनेस वूमन बनना है।
My name is Kainat. My last name is Umari. I'm in 11th class in Jam-aluddin Afghan High School.
My name is Humaira Nadiri and I am 18 years old and I'm studying in the Jam-aluddin Afghan School and I'm in 12th grade.
Of course, everyone has a dream and goal to achieve. Even I have.
We just got informed that an Afghan school is in India and it is coming in Bugal.
My dream is to become a doctor or a lawyer.
I want to make like new stuff, like the world is changing day by day and I want to make like a change in this world.
Studying and education is the basic right of life that you have to. By studying, you can grow more. You can get educated. You can study more to have more information about the environment, society, country, people, and everything.
We come to school, we see different ideas, different people with different aspirations, and that is what drives us to our own dreams.
So only by studying, we can improve in our life. We can achieve what we want to have in our life. Their rights is being taken by others. They don't have right to go to school, and they don't have right to go to university.
Education is very important for every human being in this world, but as you can see that situation in Afghanistan, like today, half of the girls, they cannot go to school. Maybe they have been dreaming, they have been really planning for their future to make some changes for them, for the people, for the country, but since it came, that's not, they're not able to do it anymore.
It is very tough to not study, to not go to school, to not go to university. Everyone should have this right.
as an Afghan girl that we study in India, we're really fortunate, and we're really grateful that after all those girls in Afghanistan, we have the opportunity to study in this country.
This school was directly funded by our Ministry of Education in Kabul. When the Republic was collapsed, there was no funding to any school, not to this particular school or any other school outside Afghanistan's border. As a matter of moral principle, we never approached Taliban for funding. We kept the school up and running with whatever available resources that we had at the mission and whatever financial contribution and sacrifices the teachers and the parents could make.
Taliban came and everything happened so fast, and they were like, we're closing the school, every students we were like panicking, like what's this happening? We were like so hopeless. It was our last year, it was just 1 year we could go to the other steps of our life, but they said no, the school will be closed and it's all ended. It like the world came black on us, like why?
After several months, we reached a stage where we required external help. We then made an outreach to the Indian government, and luckily, unfortunately, our request was taken into consideration. Over the past 1 year, we have been consistently supported by the Indian government. Our request is to have that funding continued in the future.
A few days ago, we heard that it will not be closed, it will stay like this. It was the happiest news we had in this year.
GPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value